All right, we are live. Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Illinois Green Party series. I am your host, David Rich. We have a recurring guest, actually, our first guest of everness, which we celebrated the year anniversary of the show, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, which was great. And Peter Schwartzman, who is a PhD in environmental sciences, also a Green Party member who is the mayor of Galesburg, Illinois, a very historically important town in a multitude of different areas. Welcome back to the show, Mr. Schwartzman. How are you?
Oh, I'm wonderful. I'm so glad to be back. Beautiful month,
It
and
was.
it's an exciting time.
It's definitely an exciting time, better or worse. It's definitely a time in history that's going to keep you on your toes for sure. A lot going on. So we have you on the show primarily to discuss environmental things because of your academic background, your PhD in environmental sciences, which is awesome. I think we discovered that on the first show because we were like Calvin and I were gonna like try to think of people to talk about climate change. We're like, oh, we got you, great. So I would like to talk more about climate change right now, but I'd also like to get into some other more specific things like just like localized pollution and talk about like recycling and stuff like that. If that's cool with you. Um,
Go anywhere you want.
all right, I love that. All right, let's start off with climate change. Okay, the most recent IPCC report, to summarize for the audience, was they said, by the way, we're not joking. This is serious. Stop it. Okay, so can you elaborate on that a bit?
Well, that would have been a really nice shortened version of the policymaker summary. Um, the policymaker summary, which is about 37 pages, I believe,
Right.
is something everyone should read. I require my students to read it, and it's pretty dense even of itself because it's getting more dense by the minute. The more we look at different variables, and we also are trying to be as objective with they are trying to be as objective as possible. So they're including uncertainties in every figure given, and or level of knowledge and confidence level, what they call it. And many of the key predictions are becoming more and more confident with time, and they are dire. There's no question about it. And it's not like we don't need more negative things to be aired on our airwaves. So frankly, very little coverage of the IPCC report has been given in mainstream media, as far as I can tell.
Right.
It came out, then the war is going on, and so on, so on. So it really took a back seat to a lot of other pressing matters. But admittedly, there are pressing matters, but we only have one Earth, right? Despite what Elon Musk may say, and this is where we're going to be living. Okay, and so either we're going to be living on it in harmony and peace for perpetuity, the next couple generations, or we're not, right? And I don't, it's hard to talk about because people don't want to listen to it. I mean, we have COVID. People are tired of talking about COVID, right? And they go like this. I don't want to hear anymore. I don't hear anymore. I don't care any deaths. I don't care anymore. I don't care. I'm not going to wear my mask. I'm not going to wear my mask. I'm just going to pretend like everything's fine. And the reality is, no, it's not time to think that way. It's actually time to do stuff. And I have a panoply of suggestions along those lines. I like to spend more time talking about all the wonderful things we can do. And not only, it's not like we can't do these things and we're going to suffer as a result. I mean, I think, and I'll get into that if you wish, but no, the predictions are dire. Particularly, they're going to hit where they're going to hit hardest in the island nations, the coastal regions, the developing countries are going to be the most afflicted initially. They're already afflicted now, right? We already have a massive number of millions of refugees who are suffering. We have conflagrations all over the planet. And yet we talk about them in religious terms or ethnic terms, but actually most of them derive from lack of resources, environmental stresses, and so on. And so if we actually even couch those events in those terms, people would wake up and realize these are more than likely to become more frequent in time as problems rise. I mean, have you seen the lakes in California?
I've not seen them, but I've
I
definitely
mean,
heard
they're almost not even lakes. They're not even lakes anymore.
They're puddles.
I mean, they're like ponds. They're puddles of water.
Right.
And California has 30 plus million people living in it. So if that's not a wake up call to humanity, I mean, the forest fires themselves have been out of hand. The drought in the West, which we're not just talking about California, virtually the entire West of the United States has been in an extreme drought for like the last couple of years. And we're pretending like this isn't even an issue. We can't get much headway at the national level. Some policies have been promoted, but then they get
quashed,
ignored, or just denied. And frankly, the fact, I mean, if you were writing up a children's story about what's going on, the fact that we have a cartoon character, which is a senator of West Virginia, Manchin, who's literally putting a stop to a major $trillion bill, and he is the face of the coal industry.
Yeah, no, I mean,
right?
I mean, the agenda is very transparent.
It's so we know what's going on.
Right. Yeah, no, it's too bad. And I listen to NPR a lot, drive around, I do deliveries when I'm not gardening, and I just heard some, I don't remember exactly what state it was, but some legislators or governors in some southern states just talking about they're concerned about jobs first before they are the environment. And he called it the people that worship at the altar of climate change, as if somehow we're worshiping some false god or something. Couching it, like you said, in religious terms, is just stupid and very gets people to misunderstand the urgency of the situation. I've heard other people say that they don't believe it's happening because they don't think God would do that. And stuff like that. And it's just the sort of people that have like socio-political economic power that think in these ways. And I'm a very deeply spiritual person. I'm not denying the existence of anything like that. But when you start confusing spiritual standards, rules, methods with scientific ones, you got big problems. They're two totally different epistemological areas. I mean, epistemological having to do with knowledge. They're two totally different sets of methods. So that's wholly disconcerting when I hear things like that. And like you said, none of the changes that we need to make would actually affect us in the negative, because there's a grandiose plan, at least in the what they got going on in the federal level. Though I know it's kind of not going anywhere right now, but that to go from like the coal industry, employees will get an opportunity to go for the newer industries, whatever they may be, solar, blah, 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 depending on the area. So nobody's losing their jobs. I mean, if you don't want to take the job, you don't have to. But that's built into the plan, which I thought was really cool. They get dibs on like these new jobs. So a lot of people are like, oh no, you're going to take away all these jobs from these coal miners. No, we're not. We're going to give them different ones and better ones, because coal mining is dangerous for the miners too.
Absolutely. And I mean, if we want to look, renewable energy systems result in about 3 times as many jobs as the fossil fuel industry. And there are more people employed in the renewable energy sector now than in the fossil fuel industry, even though it still occupies the fossil fuel industry occupies 80% of our total budget. So imagine that. You have 80% on one hand and about 10%, I'm ignoring nuclear for the moment. So you got 80% on one hand, 10% on the other, renewable, and those 10% produce more jobs than the 80%. Now, I mean,
it's kind of a no-brainer.
You have to be informed. I mean, that's basically, you have to be informed. And you don't have to, some of this information is in Forbes, right? It's in Bloomberg's newspaper. We're not having to go into the recesses of some super left organization that is dragging in statistics for their own benefit. No, I mean, it's right there. It's transparent. And we want to talk about globally the transition to renewables. I think currently renewables are outpacing fossil fuels in investment about 7-1. That is a mind-blowing concept. Those are not investments that you and I are making for the most part. Those investments are investments that the big power brokers are making. And we know that over the COVID, who got rich? The super rich got rich. How did they do that? In part, they're investing in these renewable strategies, and they're not telling us. I mean, we know the numbers, but they're not out there promoting them.
Right.
I mean, like officially, I mean, ExxonMobil is not going to come out and say, "Oh yes, let's go green and get rid of oil." No, they're not. But the people who are behind these major multinational companies understand the trajectory of our future, and they're maybe not doing it for environmental reasons. They're doing it for economic reasons. It is now cheaper to produce wind and solar in most instances than any other form of electricity and any other form of energy.
Right.
And when that happens, you know, the coin flip of capitalism shifts us in that direction.
Right. It's when, yes, exactly. I mean, you can use the markets for advantages and benefits if you do it wisely. Doesn't always work out that way, but Terry Schomer is watching, and that's my Aunt Terry. Hello, Terry. Thank you for watching. You'd think that she lives out in San Diego. You think what's left in the nearly empty reservoirs in California, people would wake up. Yeah, we were just discussing that, and it's true. Like, yeah, they're ponds or puddles now, and now they're talking about like taking water out of like some sea and putting it in the rivers, and all they want to do is like just keep tearing the earth apart and doing this patchwork piecemeal solution problem solving, and it's just ridiculous. You know, the whole idea, like, is it like this is what's behind permaculture as like a growing set of growing methods, is to use what nature does. Nature knows what it's doing. Okay, let's see what nature does to do these things, and let's do that. Get in line with nature's rhythms, if you will, and it should be okay, at least for the most part. It's not, we're not talking about utopia. Not all problems go away. I mean, everybody's still gonna, die one day, if you will. That's I mean, so I mean, it's not a perfect situation, but I mean, you can't just tear stuff up and just like move it over here and move this over here. I was thinking today about like the interconnectedness of the global economy and all the ships and trains and planes and everything else going from just all over the earth, and like how you can pick up like different pollens or seeds and stuff like that probably don't really that you can bring to another part of the planet that would be counted as like an invasive species and stuff like that. That's we've had plenty of problems with that. I can't remember the name of the flower, but there's something in Florida that like took over, like because somebody brought it over from Europe or something like that, and it's a problem. Things like that, and so it's a very delicate time that we live in. Can you speak any more to the water situation in California?
Well,
maybe a possible solution.
Well, it's a really serious issue.
Yeah.
And frankly, there's a book called Cadillac Desert, who kind of paints a very bleak history of how that happened. Why so many people moved to Southern California in particular? Essentially, they stole the water from the mountains, and in time, water runs out, and climate change is accelerating that. And we have this city of Phoenix, where the metropolitan area has over 2 million people, and there's no water there.
Right now, it's a desert.
And so,
By the way, guys, you shouldn't live in a desert.
I asked the question, how intelligent is our species? I mean, at times I wonder. Okay, so there's what we can do. I'll tell you something, and I mean, I'm not saying we don't have to change our ways, but the answer to water shortages, particularly along coastlines, is desalination of water. Now, they do this in Saudi Arabia because they have just oil to burn. It's basically free, I mean, to them. But we don't have, oil's not free they sell it to us for less than free. So we can't keep burning oil. So we could actually set up renewable energy, arrays, primarily wind and solar, but I would focus on solar more than wind, particularly in the Southwest, and use those to desalinate, take the salt out of the water, and then we have enough water. Obviously, we have enough water in the ocean for humans. It's just that we can't drink it and we can't use it in its current form. So we have to take those salt out. So if we, and it is an energy intensive system, so it's not for free, but we have to be much wiser about how we use water. I mean, everybody in California historically, there's always been there's been recurrent droughts and water quotas and such, and it usually affects the everyday homeowner. But you know what is the biggest draw of water in California? We know is the agricultural system, and why we grow all our food. When I say food, I'm talking about like Brussels sprouts and broccoli and things that are not subsidized. Corns, where I live, corn and soybeans are subsidized, so they're everywhere. So the basic vegetables are not subsidized. Why do we grow them all in California is a real big problem, right? We should be growing almost all that food in the Midwest because the soil here is so rich. And to do that would take a transition away from, our current mode of doing, which is basically they could get cheap labor in Southern California. So they created all these farms. They got the free water. So they developed these farms in places. We have tremendous subsidence in that part of the country, Southern California. The air quality is horrible. We know that. I mean, I went to school for 4 years in Southern California. And all of this is a function of a not so intelligent species continuing down a pathway that ultimately is a train wreck. So we have to shift our productivity of foods across the nation, right? That builds resilience. We have to look at the signs that nature is telling us when there's tremendous shortages over many years. We have to figure out ways to encourage, to de-incentivize corn and soybeans. And I was just on a farm today in Illinois, and the gentleman was pointing across the river, small, Spoon River, and he said, his neighbors are basically growing that corn for ethanol.
Right.
And that is just, it makes absolutely no sense as a humanity to do that. We don't need to burn ethanol to run our cars, right? We know how to make electric cars. We also should expand public transportation in a much more definitive way. And we could run all of that on electricity that is driven by renewable energy. But we're not going to do that overnight. It's going to take time. But if we don't get started on that project, then we're going to continue to wait like to the next hour, the next day, I mean, you want to, well, I could go on. But the issue is locally in California, I mean, they are in crisis mode.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to really look at the main use of the water, which is agriculture. And and I know I'm not a national politician, so I'm not here to say, we should close down the farms in Southern California or the Central Valley, which is our main production of food. If we did that tomorrow, we'd have most vegetables would not be produced this year. So we can't do it in 1 year, but it has to be, we have to encourage people who know how to do these things to move those farms to the Midwest where the soil is great, where the water is still sufficient. And that's probably going to be the key shift in our economy over the next 20 years.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I'm certified in the agricultural sciences, specifically horticulture and permaculture. Well, I don't think permaculture would be considered a science, but and they just they slammed into us like how much damage our modern day agricultural practices are doing to the planet. It's abhorrent. It's awful. They have to change. Recently, I started teaching organic gardening classes just to kind of do my part in trying to get the message out to people that, it's, just, as far as your own personal preference and eating fresh vegetables are always taste better. Gardening is a wonderful exercise and a wonderful hobby to have. But there's becoming a need to do that now. Unfortunately, only like
you
4
see my
people
shirt. So those are the tools. Those are the tools we need.
There you go. No, yeah, for sure. Right on.
So I didn't even expect you to point it out, but I'm ready for you. I came ready today.
Got your shears and you got your little water canister. Perfect. I like that. I'll have to get one of those. Yeah, and just to remind everybody who, in case you don't know or in case you've forgotten, that there's the year 2030, 7.5 years from now, is our first deadline. Global deadline for reducing 45% of our carbon emissions into the air of the 100% that we're doing now. Can you speak to that?
Well, I mean, when you give people deadlines like that, and on top of the fact we're coming into COVID, we're supposedly coming out of COVID, although it's not clear. People are fatigued. I mean, and they're not looking forward. So I would say to them, if you're watching this and you want to make a difference, I would say make tomorrow a special day, right? Do something tomorrow that you haven't done And maybe that's reaching out to people in your local area who are doing things, whether that's planting trees, whether that's working in the garden, whether that's encouraging renewable energy production in their area, whether that's getting their city to buy it, whether that's getting their school district to buy it. Do something different, right? Get on a different train. If you're on the train that's not leading anywhere and it's only leading to despair and frustration and a sense of, the end of the world's coming, that's the wrong train to be on. There are a lot of people in that train. And we have to understand, like, there's literally tremendous amount of depression that is set in our country and the world because of COVID. Okay. So we cannot let that take us down, right? That cannot be the end of humanity. It has to be something that we nourish. This show hopefully will get a few people to change their ways. And I will tell you, as I'm not on necessarily the right train, but I'm on a train that is every day I wake up and I try to do something positive. Right. And if you lead with that, and there are a lot, I'm not alone. There are a lot of people, but if you're not around those kind of people, go find them. They exist. They're in your neighborhood. The 100%. People who look at the glass always half full, those are not the people you want to be with right now. You can't afford to be with those people right now. You need to be with the people that say, oh, the glass is half full, let's fill it. Those are the people you need to be around. And we on the internet right now, right? There's webinars every night on permaculture, on renewable energy, on changing the economy. I mean, there of cooperatives. I mean, the list goes on. The solutions are there, and you can be on a more positive train and feel good about your contributions. And I would say, get your hands dirty. I really do believe we all need to be more connected with the planet, like physically, not just in our minds, but physically. Yeah. We need to play with the worms. We need to listen to the birds. We need to listen to the wind and the leaves. We need that in our system. We know science has taught us in the last 20 years that if you put a tree outside a hospital room, so someone in a bed can see the tree, their recovery period is shorter.
Really?
Yes, it comes out of Japan. Some incredible research. We don't know why that is, but we know it's true. We also know that if you line your street with trees, almost everyone on that street is going to live up to 7 or more years longer.
I had a lot of trees on my road. That's great.
Well, look at that. You have great longevity. But to me, these are these. I'm just touching the surface on the kinds of things that we are beginning to understand about our relationship with nature. We need nature. We need to be in nature. We need to breathe nature. We need to stop polluting and sending poisons all over the planet. We have to stop that. Now, how do we do that? Well, again, it's so easy to turn on the TV and just look at all the calamity and the horror and all the misinvestment and so on. Okay, let's turn the TV off. Shut it off. Okay, and I would ask, what has turned on the TV? What is turned? If the TV being on in your house is not motivating you to do anything, then turn it off. Right. And then go outside, walk around, talk to people, talk to your neighbors, find out if a neighbor is growing a garden. Volunteer. Say, hey, can I bring you some plants? Go talk to the principal of the school. Do you guys have a garden outside your school? I'd like to promote garden or a prairie or a butterfly or anything. And I'm not saying that these small acts are going to just immediately change our direction, but I will tell you that we are a species that is very much influenced by those around us. And when you see people doing positive things, and you're one of those people, other people are going to join in. They're going to join in. And so let's change the narrative. Let's change the narrative. I work with college age students every day. And I'll tell you, the last 10 years, I've seen more and more cynicism. And they're 20 years old and they're cynical. I'm like, if you're cynical at 20, how do you think you're going to be when you're 30 or 40 or 50? Yeah. It's terrible. So
that is terrible.
Those of us who have lived long enough to have gone through that very hyper, hormonal period, and to see the world and see a life in a different way, we need to be out there planting the seeds, right? We need to be out there showing positive pathways for people to participate in. And I'm not saying I know what the answers are. I think that would show a tremendous hubris. What I'm saying is, if you want to activate your life in a much more meaningful way, then do it. Don't wait for it. You have to go do it. You have to embrace it. You have to want it. And I feel so passionate about this because I'm around those people. I force myself into those environments, and I try to make the best of every situation. And I think my mother. Yesterday was Mother's Day. Love you, Mom. You may be watching tonight. I mean, I always felt she always had a lot of confidence in me, and she would introduce me. I mean, I was doing gardening with her when I was a child, and I didn't understand why, and I didn't understand what the benefit was. But 40 years later, I fully embrace it, and I think it seems like a small act, but it actually has tremendous ripples. It's kind of like this: if you go to the ocean and you slap the water, you've just created a wave.
Yeah.
And that wave's going to go 3,000, 5,000 miles away.
It's a butterfly
effect. What impact that's going to have, but that's going to have an impact. So let's go out and slap some water, right? Let's go out and change some soil. Let's go out and improve the air quality. Let's go out and embrace some young people who are really distraught right now and who need mentorship and love, because it's bleak. I mean, it's hard to say it's not bleak, but I'm very lucky. I don't wake up with the bleakness. I wake up with the opportunity.
I don't either. I refuse to let any of this bring me down. I still try to hold a very positive attitude. I love to laugh. I love humor. I love making other people laugh and that kind of thing. And going back to what you were saying, to find like realigning or reconnecting with like the wonder and the magic of nature, spending time in nature and literally like listening to the leaves rustle and listening to the critters in the fields and stuff like that. It's gonna get inside you. It's gonna create something positive inside you. I would 99.99% guarantee it. I guess some people might be off-putting, but I doubt it. Yeah, no, it's nature is a wonderful, and it's just fascinating too. Going back to like gardening and all the things you learn about it, and you're just like, wow, it's just how amazing nature is and how it can take us. Just think about like a little tiny seed and what it becomes, and it's this big. Just think about how amazing that is.
Absolutely.
I
mean, I wrote a story. I read a blog called onehuman.org. I haven't been writing much recently, but for a few years there, I was writing quite a bit. And one of my first entries was about how I got motivated to grow food. And it's because I took an okra seed, which looks like a little ball bearing.
Yeah.
And I planted it in the ground. I was completely unfamiliar with, really how to grow okra. And I'll tell you, 3 months later, I had a 13-foot plant.
Crazy.
And I had to literally stand up and bend over in order to get my okra fruit. And it was amazing. And I said, if that okra can do that, I really asked myself, I should be able to do more. Right? I should be able to do more. I mean, that's it. I should be able to do more. If that okra can do that with a little water,
a little sunshine, some little nutrients,
microorganisms. If that okra can do that in 3 months, I can do more.
Exactly. I mean, the human mind has access to mathematics, algebra, and all that's, logic and all sorts of things that gives you an almost infinite potential. So you're right. If a little okra seed can do that in 3 months, one person can, literally. I like slap the water. I like that. Can I take that?
I've never said it before, but
I'll give you. I'll put PS underneath it or something like that for your initials. But I think I need to make a bumper sticker, something like don't slap the police, slap water. I don't know, something like
that. I completely agree with that. I think slapping the police doesn't get us anywhere.
Yeah, well, even though we want to sometimes.
I will tell you something about that. Okay. I was literally surrounded by 600 police this weekend because we, as you mentioned, we had a death of a police officer in our county.
That's what it was, right.
Yeah, it was a terrible situation, very unfortunate, but it was an amazing event, and to be surrounded by those police officers and how much love they showed the family of the fallen, and I thought, like, if we treated all human beings that way, I mean, I think the person deserves it, but all people deserve it. So let's take that energy and shift it when there's not a death, when there's not a horrible situation. Let's talk about the children in our communities and how much potential they have. I see them as the seeds, like the okra. They have everything in them to be incredibly gifted, loving creatures of the future. So the question is, what are we doing to promote that? What are we doing? And sometimes it's just a conversation. I've had students for many years, and I never know what's really going to motivate them. I had one student, just to give one example. I noticed that he rode a skateboard into class, and he hung it on the wall. And the first day of class, I said, "Hey, that's cool. That's cool that you got a skateboard." To this day, he remembers that. He remembers that I took a moment of time away from the lesson, and I recognized him and his choice. And I told him that the skateboard is one of the best modes of transportation from a green energy point of view.
100%.
And that was foundational. From that point on, that student, he felt he belonged. And we need more of that. We need to find ways to get people to belong. The media, not this media, but other medias out there, 500 plus channels we have, most of them are creating division.
Very antagonistic, very agenda ridden.
Two sports teams. One of them's going to win, one's going to lose. The loser is the enemy. The winner is the one we celebrate. And how many channels? And I watch too much sports, frankly.
I love sports. Yeah.
Right. So, but it's very divisive.
Absolutely.
Right.
It can be. It doesn't have to be. You can have friendly competition in sports and not be an idiot about it. Right. I live in North Chicago. I'm a Cubs fan. I got friends of mine, who's like say grandfathers, because it's waned a bit. We're like so diehard Sox fans that they don't even talk to you if you're a Cubs fan. That's just weird.
It is weird. It is weird. But no, you're right. You're right. There's no reason. We should enjoy the game.
Absolutely.
We should whoever wins, fine. We had a good game. Everybody tried their best.
Yes.
At the end of the day, we go out and we have a sandwich. Or we plant a tree. Afterwards. To me, that's kind of what we need. We need the socialization, which of course we've been losing out on, and we need to lead with love, right? We need to lead into every conversation. So when I think of the nature bit, I just want to make one other point. There's a lot of division in our political system. And if someone comes up to you and says, "Well, I support him or her or whatever," most of us immediately say, "Okay, I can't talk to you. You're just on the wrong side." And we come up with all these terrible things to say about each other. Okay, but guess what? What if we didn't have that? We didn't know. We just started having a conversation with somebody. It's like, oh, that park that we have on the north side of town is beautiful, and we can ride kayaks in there, and then the butterflies come and blah 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 blah. And before you know it, let's clean it up. Let's go out and dredge it and get all the garbage out. And you might be oppositional on every political front you could name, but guess what? The two of you are out there doing something positive for the community that you both enjoy. And that's what we need to find. We need to find those places of community and connection. That's really what we need to do. And frankly, for those of us who can kind of put their politics in the back seat for the moment, go to places where you're not technically, you don't belong. You're an outsider, but listen and embrace the positive things that are going on there, right? Emphasize the positive, work together, find, churches. It's amazing how many churches are divided. Churches should be out there celebrating all of these things, nurturing the children, planting trees, providing transportation, helping those that are hungry, providing shelter for the homeless. I mean, the fact that any community needs to build a shelter for the homeless is a sign of social breakdown. It's a social breakdown of the community. When we knew each other and we knew our neighbors, we would support each other. We would care for each other. We need to return to that. We need to be very intentional about that. And I mean, it's a trite thing to say, but I feel like we can all do it, and we just need to let's start tomorrow. And write it down, because I find that when I write things down, I'm more committed to them, and I can't look at it and say, "Oh, yep, I was supposed to do that yesterday." Oh no, was that yesterday? You start to get confused. But if you write things down, or find a friend, a close friend of yours, and say, guess what, friend? I want you and I to work on something, and we're going to keep each other accountable for making a positive difference in our community. So let's do it.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a great idea. Like the buddy system, if you will. And actually, people use it for like going to the gym because they fail on their own so often. Like, hey, how about you and I go to the gym together? We keep each other accountable, and like the likelihood goes up. It doesn't always work, but the likelihood will definitely go up for sure. You know, which is what you're trying to do.
And I'm just saying, I mean, we feel very isolated right now.
Oh yeah, no,
and it's easy. It's so I mean, just the other day, I felt very isolated for various things that were going on that particular day. And then guess what? A friend called me and we started dialoguing, and then I came out of it. Nice. But for a lot of people, they're trapped. They're trapped there. It's one conversation is not going to get them out of it. And if you know people like that, but you're not there, well, then you need to reach out to them and try to engage them in something. Find out what they want to do, and then embrace what they're doing. And you'll see that there's positives. That it's like we in terms of the climate, we talk about the vicious cycle. One change leads to another bad change, which leads to another bad change. The feedbacks are negative. What about a virtuous cycle? Let's start dealing with virtuous cycles. Yeah. When people talk about climate change, they talk about, okay, we add CO2 to the atmosphere. That's going to heat up the earth. That's going to melt the ice caps. That's going to cause sea level to rise, and mosquitoes to grow, and hurricanes to get bigger. All negative, right? There's nothing positive. What about something positive? Can we think of virtuous cycles? So when our community plants a prairie in our park, what's that going to do? That's going to bring in more pollinators, which is going to enhance agricultural production outside of town, which is going to keep more water in our system and less erosion. And you just keep going. And why don't we tell those stories?
Right.
I don't have the videos at hand, but I can tell you this. There are at least 3 examples that I know of that there's these short videos online on YouTube where people have built amazing gardens in the desert. They take a denuded landscape with no water, and they built the most majestic gardens. And They've done it in the course of about 5 years. If that isn't like inspiring, if people can grow food in a desert with no water, right? We can do anything.
I mean, yeah, that's pretty impressive stuff there.
Yeah. So watch those videos. One was in Saudi Arabia, I know, and another was in China. And the third, I believe might have been in Australia. But, and how did they do it? It wasn't magical. They used the basic principles that if you collect water that does fall, the little rain you might get, but you don't let it just wash away. If you collect it and really use it intentionally, it multiplies how much water is actually falling. And it also then has virtuous cycles. The more rain that falls, the more rain, or that collects, the more rain that will fall, and it continues. That's how a rainforest works. But guess what happens when you burn it down? You know what happens? The rain goes away.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So that's a vicious cycle.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I wonder if I'm thinking of the Saudi Arabia one. So I remember we watched a video when I was getting my certification. And it was some like just desertous area somewhere in the Middle East, and I don't remember where. And it was almost like a valley. And this guy kind of commandeered the project, and just the end of it was like it was this lush Garden of Eden. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, that's the example.
Oh my God, it was unbelievable.
Yeah, you saw it, but I mean, I'm just and there are people doing this in the Sahara Desert, actually on a smaller scale. And you might think, how could you grow food in the Sahara Desert? Because it just the movies show us it's just large sand dunes as far as the eye can see, right?
Right.
Well, guess what? You also, what do you have in the Sahara Desert? You have a lot of sunlight. So you could set up solar panels for energy.
Oh man.
You can then use that energy to create the kind of water collection systems I'm talking about. Because it does rain in the Sahara Desert, not very much. And you know what happens to the rain typically? With sand, it goes all the way down. It doesn't stay near the surface. Well, humans have the ability to design systems that keep it near the surface. When it's at the surface, It's doing the biological things that water does. Like, think of our bodies. Our bodies are somewhere between 60 to 80% water, depending on our age and our weight and everything. 60 to 80% of you and me is water, like we get out of the faucet. If we don't understand that water is life, right? I'm reading a book about Native Americans. Water is life. And we don't understand. I mean, I'm just beginning to understand what that means. That's what it means. It is life. And if we don't treat it well, and this goes back to your point, the question from your aunt, what's going on in California? If we don't recognize this, the incredible power of water and the importance of it, and we haven't, right? We've ignored it, we've abused it, we've polluted it, blah, 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 in many areas. Well, we need to shift that. We need to completely go against that. We have to look at water as just a incredible resource, right? Just like we talk about diamonds. We spend thousands of dollars for diamonds. I think we should give wedding rings made of water. How about that for a change in pace? I'm going to start an industry tomorrow. I sit with you. I come up with all these ideas, and then I'm going to make a profit. That's why I'm so wealthy.
1% royalties, I'll be fine. That's great. I mean, absolutely, I agree. Diamonds at the end of the day are a rock. Rocks are cool and important and all, but give me a break. The value of them is completely arbitrary. The value of water is objective, not arbitrary. Okay, two very, very different things here. Water is extremely important. No water, no life. That's why you hear about, like, on other planets of Mars, like, we think we found like a water molecule. Oh my God. They didn't say anything about finding gems or emeralds or anything, because it doesn't matter.
It's true. It's true. I mean, think about, like, what do we, like, if you did nothing today, what would you have to do today? You'd have to drink water.
Right.
You could do without diamonds.
You could not eat for a month.
Right.
If you don't drink water for a month, you die.
Right. Exactly. And I mean, all this other stuff is secondary in many regards.
Right.
So, I mean, I like to put the emphasis where it needs to be. We need to think of water in a much different way. We need to respect it in a way that we haven't. And I think once we do, it leads us, I mean, water is life. So it will lead us towards positive life relationships.
100%. We only got like 10 minutes left. I want to talk about at least two more things before we're done. And I mean, there's 1,000 more things, but you've mentioned Elon Musk, and I want to talk about him. What do you think of Elon Musk? Because I heard him saying, I've just been looking a lot at him lately. I don't know why. The TikTok thing, or I'm sorry, the Twitter thing is, just kind of made him more in the public eye. But I remember watching an interview with him, and he said that you could get energy enough to give electricity to everybody in America with 200,000 square miles of solar panels. He's like, there's a corner in Utah where nobody's doing anything. Just use that. Is that true?
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. In fact, you could cover Wyoming with 8% of the land of Wyoming, and you have energy for the planet, for the country. And in fact, I do the calculations at my onehuman.org site. It was one of the blogs I did. I just said, look, okay, let's do some basic back of the envelope calculations on how much land surface is necessary to provide the electricity that we need and energy. And those are different, but they're related. So you can go there and look at that. Oh, he's absolutely right. I think there's a challenge in that, and I would just say this: like, we need to make sure everybody gets it. Right.
Well, what I mean, would the government even let that be built? I mean, is what's stopping us? Is what's stopping Elon Musk from, somebody like him at least, from building that solar panel field, 200,000 square mile field? Is it all politics that's stopping him?
Oh, it's only. Oh, I don't know about him. I don't know. I don't know the details of what he's trying to do. I think he comes up with these grandiose thoughts, which other people lesser than him, like myself, have come up with too and publicized, just not with the same acclaim.
Okay.
And I got to push the book. My father and I wrote "The Earth Is Not for Sale." We go into lots of details about this too.
Okay.
And I think he gets a lot of headlines. I want to see the devil's in the details. The devil's in the, like, I want to see what you do. I want to see, you can come up with all these great ideas, but what are you doing to ensure that everyone has access to this energy? We can go back to the 60s, and the nuclear power industry promised us that we'd have free energy in a few years.
Who said that?
The nuclear power industry. Nuclear power is going to be free, right? Because it's so a little bit of uranium can provide energy for a whole city.
It's the most bang for your buck. There's no
right. But of course, it's not free. It's not free at all. It's never been free. In fact, solar and wind are right now, for the most part, preferred, economically speaking, to nuclear energy electricity. Plus, they don't have the hazards associated with everything nuclear. We go into a lot of detail on this in the book. The point I'm trying to make is, yes, I appreciate that someone of his stature is communicating these messages, but let's look at the brass tacks. How is it being implemented? When you put solar in the community, are you providing low cost energy to everyone, or are you just providing energy for Amazon, and then they're going to write it off in their taxes and then pay no taxes and get carbon credits for what they're doing? And I think at the base level, there's a lot of solar and wind going up, but I question some of the motivations of it. It's obviously being done for economic reasons, but if we're really going to bring peace to the planet, which I think we all recognize is essential right now, we need to ensure that everyone on planet Earth, every human being, has access to sufficient amounts of energy. And the fastest way to do that is what's called decentralized solar. Decentralized solar. There are solar panels. I don't know if I have one. Yeah, right here. Okay, I didn't expect to show you this. This is a little solar panel, and it's about as big as my head, right? And in Africa, a student of mine was working in Africa, Kenya, I believe, and they pass these out, and this lights up. I mean, it takes an energy during the day, and you turn it over, and it's your light bulb at night.
Fabulous.
And this costs in bulk about $5, and it can provide electricity to a room for years, right? No kerosene, right? No fossil fuel needed, and people can learn to read. They can have schools open at night, right? When you have lights, you have less domestic abuse. You have less child abuse.
Interesting.
A lot of interesting positive things can come, and we need to ensure that everyone has access to light and electricity. And this is just a small scale thing. If you built it a little bigger, you could cook your food with it. The major cause of air pollution death in the world is indoor cooking.
What?
Yes, indoor cooking. People are cooking with wood and coal around the world because that's what they have access to, and they are dying. They are dying early deaths because those produce what are called aerosols or particulates, and that's what gets in your lungs and kills you.
Sure.
That is the major cause of death due to air pollution in the world, is indoor cooking, particularly in developing countries.
Gotcha.
This simple tool solves that problem. Now, back to water. I got to say this. There are simple technologies. They're like ceramic tubs. They're probably the size of a large salad bowl. You can pour polluted water in those bowls. And what I mean by polluted, I'm talking about pesticides, even disease. You can pour these into this bowl, and it's like a sieve, right? A colander. The water percolates out, and it's clean. It's drinkable. Yes, it sounds like far-fetched, I know, and I'm not an investor in either of these technologies. I'm not trying to sell you on anything. These things are well known. They can be distributed around the world. They should be. It should be a international campaign to ensure that everyone has one of these, a few of these, hopefully, right, and a couple of sieves, ceramic sieves, and that's going to reduce all the waterborne illness related to drinking polluted water and disease-ridden water.
I guess I totally 100% believe you. I guess what I don't understand is how that can take out a microscopic pathogen.
It is a little bit hard to understand. I'm not going to, I mean, I can't speak for
If that
viruses.
gets too sciencey, don't worry about it.
But I want to say that it's more than just small holes, right? I mean, obviously a virus is a small hole. I mean, a small particle. So it's smaller than a drop of water. Right. But what we don't, it's more than just small holes. It has to do with electrical signals that are in the material, which allows for certain compounds. And water is polar. Yep. So water is going to be directed out of it, whereas the other things are not. Okay,
gotcha. Okay,
but we can come back and talk, and we can I'll post. I'll go to our website and I'll post a couple things on these topics.
That'd be great, absolutely. And we should have you back on just to talk about like technology and stuff like that. That would be great. And after the show, remind me about that little lamp because I want to get one. I'm looking around like I could just save money on electricity every month just by getting one of these things, and instead of using this big honking lamp I have for reading or my room, I just use that. That's fantastic. Okay, we only have 3 minutes left. Man, I
got 8 minutes. I got 7
well,
minutes.
No, we have to stop it at 5 too because I have to replay this on a radio program later in the week. Okay, Elon Musk. Oh, let's real quick. Do you ever get frustrated or concerned about the political barriers? Like I'm thinking to myself during like when you were talking earlier about how like the number one single entity that is the greatest polluter in the world is literally the United States military. And they're still doing like nuclear bomb tests and crap like that. Like, how do you fight against that? How do you tell everybody that's a politician in the Congress or the Senate is going to vote to but the budget for the military because you can't not do that at that level or else you're done. What do you do about stuff like that?
Well, I agree. I mean, the U.S. not just the U.S. military, the world military. If we spent 10% of that budget, 10% of that budget, we could eradicate hunger. Yep. We could provide clean water to everyone. We could vaccinate everyone, not just for COVID, but every other disease that we know of that we have vaccines for. We could provide prenatal health care and postnatal health care to everyone. Yeah, it's ridiculous. 10%. So I say, let's give the military a nice 10% of a year, which is about 36 days, give them a month off, and we can use that money in other ways. And we would see the benefit. I mean, I'm playing, a little, you like jokes, so I made you smile at least. The point is, you're absolutely right. We have to identify this. A lot of environmentalists won't touch it. Why? Because they don't think there's anything that can be done. Well, I think the minute you think that, well,
it's over.
It's over. Go back to Eisenhower. You know what he said about the military-industrial complex.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he warned us about it.
He was a general and he was a Republican. Go back if you're watching this and you have not heard his speech about that. Play it, spread it. This was 60 years ago. Yeah. He was very clear about this problem. Now he wasn't thinking about climate change or other things, but
they taking over the role of a democracy. I mean,
right. And the wealth. I mean, yes, we can talk about the pollution, but the wealth that's lost, that's just wasted. It's wasted.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
It's overkill. Right? We have the biggest military by far. It's overkill. We can provide. Look at all the people in the military that could have other jobs, planting trees. In this new permaculture, agricultural, agroforestry, all of these amazing new areas, biomimicry. There's all these really amazing technological areas that could be developed with our intelligence. And we just need to make clear to any congressional person running for office that these are the things we want. We have to demand them. And we have a lot of congressional races coming up in the next few weeks, next few months. We need, those of us watching this need to change the dialogue, change the narrative, bring something like this up at your city council meeting. No one else is doing that. I can promise you. No one else in the community is coming to the city council meeting and asking these kinds of questions. We need to inform people. A lot of young people are completely unaware of this. When I teach people this, they're like in shock, like, oh, I can't believe it was that bad or this to that. Well, why not? Because the mainstream media is not presenting it to them. So knowledge is at the basis of change. And if we have knowledge, then we have potential for change.
Sounds good. Beautifully said. Good way to end the show. And again, so yeah, I'm going to do this thing on June 7th, where I'm holding a thing in a lecture hall, and I will be streaming you, my friend, into it to do basically what we're doing here, but to an audience of people, hopefully enough people. Because again, I'm just trying to do my part and get the message out there as much as I can. So instead of, people ignore, if they tend to ignore shows like this or whatever else, maybe I can encourage them to come into a little thing with some like free cookies or something. I don't know. Anyway, thank you everybody for listening in and viewing the Illinois Green Party series. I'm your host, David Rich, with a very special guest, Dr. Mayor Peter Schrawtzman. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I really loved it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Till next time, everybody, be good, be green.